Communicating with Other Cultures by Andrew Haugland. What is culture? The question, what is culture, is one of the most challenging questions researchers and philosophers had to deal with. French humanist René Dubois said culture is the expression of man's responses to the physical and human environment. These responses take the form of behavioral patterns and emotional relationships, as well as the development of utilitarian objects. According to Alfred G. Smith, culture is a code we learn and share, and learning and sharing require communication. Fred Jant says that culture cannot be known without a study of communication, and communication can only be understood with an understanding of the culture it supports. Culture's communication styles differ throughout the globe. In many Eastern Asian countries, they practice Confucianism. Confucius, or Kongzhua, was an influential Chinese philosopher, teacher, and political figure in 561 to 479 BC. Confucianism, which emphasizes virtue, selflessness, duty, patriotism, hard work, and respect for hierarchy, both familial and societal, play a huge role in the cultures in these countries. Confucianism's perspectives on communication include particularism, role of intermediaries, reciprocity, in-group out-group distinction, and overlap of personal and public relationships. In particularism, there are no rules governing interaction with someone whose status is unknown. Instead of applying the same rule to everyone, such factors as status, intimacy, and context create different communication rules for diverse people. In the Confucian country of Korea, it is quite common for strangers to find out each other's age in the first few minutes of conversation, and they adjust their language to show respect. In the role of intermediaries, rituals should be followed in establishing relationships. In China, it is not unusual to use a third party to negotiate with future in-laws about wedding plans, and in general, to use a third party to avoid direct confrontations. In reciprocity, gratitude and indebtedness are important parts of Chinese culture. A person feels uneasy to be indebted to someone, and payback is necessary to achieve balance in the relationship. In the in-group out-group distinction between inside and outside influences in every aspect of Chinese culture. In-group members engage in freer, deeper talk and may find it difficult to develop personal relationships with out-group members. The overlap of personal and public relationships include business and pleasure are mixed. This contrasts the Western patterns of keeping public and private lives separate. There are several Chinese terms for the English word communication. Seeking harmony with family and others is the goal of communication in Chinese culture. How do we communicate culture? Culture is communicated through language. Language is the primary form of communication in humans, both written and spoken. In the world, there are over 6,500 languages. Culture is communicated through language because a lot of cultures deal with how people communicate. Nonverbal signals are used in similar ways in all cultures. There are also differences, and these can easily produce misunderstanding. Now we're going to take a look at how these things come together. Language as a way of communicating culture. A particular language points to the culture of a particular social group. Learning a language, therefore, is not only learning the alphabet, the meaning, the grammar rules, etc., but it is also learning the behaviors of the society and the cultural customs. Rossi Landi, an Italian philosopher, explained that all children learn their language from their societies, and during the process of learning a language, also learn their culture and develop their cognitive abilities. Nonverbal communication is a way of communicating culture. Nonverbal signals are used in similar ways in all cultures, and these can easily produce misunderstanding. One of the most well-known and easiest ways to demonstrate your culture or identify if someone is from a different culture is by physical appearance, such as clothing or jewelry, like the woman in this picture has on. What is intercultural competence? Intercultural competence is the ability to function effectively across cultures, to think and act appropriately, and to communicate and work with people from different cultural backgrounds, whether at home or abroad. Different parts needed to be a competent communicator include appropriateness and effectiveness, context, knowledge, skills, and motivation. Hammer, Gudekunst, and Wiseman's 3 dimensions of intercultural competence deal with 3 major things. The ability to deal with psychological stress. This can be due to being in an unfamiliar place and being lonely. The ability to communicate effectively, such as learning a language that is dominant in that particular culture. And the ability to establish interpersonal relationships. This can help you learn the ins and outs of a particular culture. Now we go back to the question, how do we communicate across and within cultures? Communicating interculturally includes using the parts of being a competent communicator, such as appropriateness and effectiveness, context, knowledge, skills, and motivation. But most importantly, there are extremely important individual and cultural differences in the number of times it is polite to ask another person to repeat a word or explain something again. The cultural background of a communicator influences almost every detail and every pattern of this communication activities. Things to consider when communicating interculturally. For people communicating for the first time, you will notice a higher frequency of phrases such as, "What did you say? I thought you said, you mean you don't have a, you honestly don't believe." And communication between communicators of similar cultural backgrounds is usually easier, more reliable, faster, safer, etc. than is communication between communicators of dissimilar cultural backgrounds. This emphasizes the importance of learning how to communicate competently when you deal with your next intercultural communication. The most important thing to remember is be confident. Confidence plays a huge role in how you communicate, how well you communicate, and how your message is portrayed. These are my references. Thank you for watching, and consider using these techniques next time you communicate interculturally. How do we communicate across and within cultures? Before we can answer this question, we have to figure out the next question. Where does communication tie into culture?